Welcome! MCRSP is pleased to offer you this opportunity to learn more about Missouri's Recovery Housing Accreditation process. We're looking forward to working with you to get your recovery housing accredited. This video training is designed to provide information on the Missouri Recovery Housing Accreditation Project. It is based on the live regional trainings provided by MCRSP during June and July of 2017. Specific goals for this training include the history of Missouri's move towards accreditation of recovery housing within the state, and an overview of key documents including Missouri's recovery housing standards that will be used during the accreditation process. All of the documents referenced in this training can be downloaded at mcrsp.org. This video also contains an overview of the entire accreditation process as designed by the MCRSP Recovery Housing Task Force. You will also find a link to the most frequently asked questions from the regional trainings in Missouri, as well as a link to the MCRSP Recovery Housing website. The information in this video is arranged in 6 sections. Section 1 provides a brief background and history of recovery housing both across the nation and within our state. Section 2 offers an overview of the MCRSP's philosophy and purpose, including a brief background on the National Alliance of Recovery Residences, otherwise known as NAR. In Section 3, the need for and role of a uniform code of ethics as a cornerstone of MCRSP Recovery Housing Accreditation Project is discussed in detail. Section 4 contains an overview and highlights of the standards that have been adopted by the MCRSP that houses will need to meet in order to be accredited within the state. Section 5 of this video provides an overview of the policy and procedures adopted by the MCRSP Recovering Housing Task Force for both residents and housing operators. Section 6 of this training video provides step-by-step guidance on the process of getting your house accredited. Feel free to stop and restart this video at any time. Completing it can be done at your own pace. Documents and links presented in each section can be downloaded at the MCRSP website, mcrsp.org. If you have any trouble with this video training, please contact Missouri Recovery Housing Accreditation Project Lead, whose contact information is also available at the MCRSP website. Ready? Then let's get started. Section 1. Missouri Recovery Housing. Background and history. While the establishment of accreditation standards for recovery housing in Missouri is new, there is a long history leading up to this process. As a starting point, let's review the National Alliance of Recovery Residences' definition of recovery housing. Missouri history in recovery housing goes back to several key initiatives within the state. These included the Missouri Department of Mental Health and Department of Corrections and their efforts to support recovery housing as part of community-based treatment and recovery supports. The rise of large and small not-for-profit agencies and faith-based organizations dedicated to providing clean, safe, and affordable sober housing options as part of a person's recovery journey. Missouri's recovery housing history includes an array of Oxford houses and utilized access to recovery, otherwise known as ATR, to expand access to recovery housing options across the state. Yet with all this great work in our state, there were no generally accepted standards or guidelines for recovery residences that constitute a well-run program that facilitates and cultivates the recovery process. This lack of standards and guidelines meant that housing quality could vary from house to house and community to community. This variation also contributes to a community's perception of recovery housing, as noted in this slide. In order to address these real concerns and issues, Missouri began a process to review recovery housing within the state and develop a plan to move towards the accreditation of recovery housing. Through the Missouri Recovery Network, a complete study was commissioned. This study included research on work in other states regarding accreditation of recovery housing. Additionally, the researcher held a series of focus groups and regional and state meetings with over 100 housing operators, community, local, and state stakeholders to identify key issues, concerns, and items in order to move Missouri towards accreditation of recovery housing. Highlights from this report included the need for and strong support of developing a Missouri Association of Recovery Housing Organization and customization of standards for Missouri using NAR and other state standards with the goal of creating a systematic process for this approach. Additionally, Missouri identified the MCRSP to be the statewide organization that would provide this accreditation as Missouri's NAR affiliate. The report also identifies 5 other key roles and responsibilities for the organization managing Missouri's Recovery Housing Accreditation Project: to provide advocacy, educational opportunities, technical assistance, and an accreditation process for recovery houses in Missouri; to provide an up-to-date listing of recovery housing that are accredited only, generating credibility and respect; to facilitate and encourage collaboration with the recovery community, housing groups, treatment programs, city, county, state, federal governments, as well as legislators, community and state agencies, and organizations, and law enforcement; to provide a unified voice on behalf of recovery housing residents and providers, advocating at the local and state levels for a better understanding of recovery housing and its role in the recovery process, and to help reduce the stigma and discrimination which creates barriers to recovery housing; to facilitate referrals both to certified and licensed treatment and from treatment to recovery residences. While there is a lot of detail here, the goal of the Missouri Recovery Housing Accreditation Project is to raise everyone up and have more quantity and quality. And the Missouri Recovery Housing Accreditation Task Force is approaching this project as partners with you in getting housing accredited for the first time through this process. Section 2. Missouri Recovery Housing, MCRSP Philosophy and Purpose. The Missouri Coalition of Recovery Support Providers is a statewide organization of the provider organizations from the 5 regional ROSCs: Kansas City, Southeast, Southwest, Central, and St. Louis. MCRSP initially formed in 2014 as part of Missouri's effort to sustain recovery support services at the end of the state's Access to Recovery grant. Recovery housing support was a key service element within this grant, and MCRSP utilized their members' knowledge and skills in this area to establish a housing committee. One of the overarching goals of MCRSP is the expansion of safe, affordable, and quality recovery housing within Missouri. Key to this goal was MCRSP's attainment of affiliation status with the National Alliance of Recovery Residences in June of 2017. This affiliation status is the first step in establishing MCRSP as the accrediting body for recovery housing within the state. The National Alliance of Recovery Residences, otherwise known as NAR, has established a set of standards designed to meet the organization's mission, vision, and goals. These standards have been designed to measure key elements to assure residents, communities, and funders of the quality of 4 levels of community-based recovery housing. Missouri's recovery housing quality standards have been selected from the National NAR Standard Set and required approval by NAR as part of the affiliation process. You can find out more about NAR at naronline.org. There are several benefits for both the state and housing operators that come with MCRSP and NAR affiliation. Some of these benefits include maintaining a standard for recovery residents' quality improvement, advocating for the adoption of the MCRSP and NAR standards, delivering technical assistance to recovery residences and organizations, promoting research, evidence-based training, and public information campaigns, and defending the housing rights of recovery residences and residents. Before you move on through the rest of the video, the MCRSP Recovery Housing Accreditation Task Force offers the following thoughts. There are a lot of details in the coming sections, but a review done by MCRSP during this project indicates that if you are successfully running a house, you're probably already meeting most of these standards. As you can see, there is a lot of experience within Missouri in operating quality recovery housing. The task force encourages you not to be scared of your journey to becoming an accredited house. Finally, the MCRSP Recovery Housing Task Force is dedicated to helping your organization be successful in getting your housing accredited. Section 3, Code of Ethics. Before starting this section, you are encouraged to download the Missouri Code of Ethics for Recovery Housing from mcrsp.org. While NAR doesn't require houses to have a code of ethics, the MCRSP Recovery Housing Task Force believes that a strong code of ethics is the foundation of a quality recovery house. As such, all housing operators will be required to follow the Missouri Code of Ethics and sign and submit assurances that their homes will follow this code. Missouri Recovery Housing Code of Ethics contains 12 sections and is designed to provide minimum requirements in key areas affecting housing operations, including residents' rights and responsibilities, house rules and prohibitions, protections for both residents and management to protect from inappropriate relationships, and assurances to follow federal, state, and local laws. Section 4, Missouri Recovery Housing Standards. Before starting this section, you are encouraged to download the Missouri Recovery Housing Standards. MCRSP has adopted a set of standards and established an accreditation process in coordination with the National Alliance of Recovery Residences. In Missouri, it should be noted that the terms recovery residences and recovery housing are interchangeable. Additionally, MCRSP does not provide samples of and does not endorse a particular style or format for policies, procedures, and documentation. This decision was made to allow for housing operators to utilize products already in use within their organization to document compliance with the Missouri Recovery Housing Standards. As requested by those seeking accreditation, MCRSP will facilitate the sharing and assistance among recovery houses with the development of the required documentation. The Missouri Recovery Housing Standards contains 4 domains with 35 standards and multiple items within each standard. The standards are organized by 4 areas and contain a description of each standard and the required items that demonstrate compliance with each of them. As noted in Section 1 of this video, Missouri's RHSs have been developed from the NAR standards, customized for Missouri, and approved by NAR before Missouri could become an affiliate. The standards, as written, are set at the minimal acceptance level. The MCRSP Recovery Housing Accreditation Project has adopted these 3 levels of recovery housing within the state of Missouri. Levels and definitions include Level 1, peer run. Level 2, someone in charge, peer manager, report to someone, services are outside of the house. And Level 3, supervised recovery house, presence of a case management staff or peer specialists. MCRSP will work with housing operators to identify the appropriate level of their house. As an additional note, NAR has a Level 4, which closely matches Missouri's residential treatment facilities, which are already licensed within the state. As such, MCRSP will not be accrediting this type of housing. Additional notes regarding these standards include some of the standards apply to only 1 or 2 of the levels. Some of the standards are recommended for different levels of housing, but not required. Standards are anticipated to evolve in Missouri. The self-assessment checklist is designed in grid format to be used by housing operators to prepare for accreditation, and a completed self-assessment checklist is required to be submitted with the application packet. If you have not already done it, please download and print a full copy of Missouri's Recovery Housing Quality Standards Self-Assessment Checklist before proceeding through this section of the video. This will allow you to follow along with the key highlights from the live trainings, as these standards were reviewed and discussed in these sessions. Please use these sheets to note any additional questions or comments you may have on each of these standards. Instructions on how to submit these questions to the Missouri Recovery Housing Accreditation Task Force will be provided at the end of this video. The first section of Missouri's RHS focuses on administrative and operational standards that housing operators need to meet in order to become an accredited recovery house. This section includes 16 standards. Standard 15 and 16 apply to Level 3 housing only. Some of the standards discussed at the local trainings include local codes. You will attest you comply, as the team that will come to accredit your house will not know all the codes. Formal policy and process for residents to assure that residents know payment requirements. This has been the biggest area of complaints in the past. Ethical ways to work with residents who need money. This is an instance where standards can also protect housing operators from misunderstandings and potential legal issues. Appropriate insurance for a recovery house. MCRSP will implement an expert review of your recovery home insurance policy to assure appropriate coverage. Other administrative and operational standards spotlighted in the trainings included residents' rights and responsibilities, which can be documented through the posting of the housing and project contract within the house. Some of the policy and procedures can be embedded in other documents. Input from residents on who is coming into the house. Some examples of items that housing operators can use to document compliance with this standard is through their open door process or comment box. Length of stay expectations must be flexible enough to accommodate resident-driven departures. Few houses currently have alumni process. This standard is designed to encourage different ways for these alums to support current residents. Final highlights in the section of the standards included the notation that some of the standards in the Missouri RHS are recommended but not required for certain housing levels, such as Standard 11.3, and that some standards, such as 15 and 16, only apply to supervised Level 3 recovery housing. The next set of standards pertain to recovery supports provided to residents of the recovery housing, which starts on the bottom of page 4 of your printed checklist. These are standards 17 through 28 in the checklist. Standards 27 and 28 apply only to Level 3, which is supervised recovery housing. Several examples are provided in Standard 20 that document compliance with the standard to inform and encourage residents to participate in a range of community-based supports. Standards 29 through 32 focus on the physical house and focuses on the creation and maintenance of a home-like environment that promotes community within the house that is safe for the residents. Standard 31, items 13 and 14, establishes the requirement that naloxone be available in every house and that residents and staff at levels 2 and 3 be trained on the use of this medication. Of particular note, MCRSP NAR accredited housing may waive an additional HUD HQS for housing operators receiving state funds for their residents. However, for housing operators who receive HUD funding for their houses, you will be required to obtain both a HUD HQS inspection in addition to MCRSP NAR accreditation. The final group of standards, which pertain to Good Neighbor Recovery Housing, are covered through Standards 33 through 35. These standards reflect MCRSP goal of recovery houses being an asset to a neighborhood and in some a transformational element. Section 5. Recovery Housing Grievance Policy and Procedure. Before starting this section, you are encouraged to download the MCRSP Recovery Housing Grievance Policy and Procedure, which is available at mcrsp.org. The Missouri Coalition of Recovery Support Providers, MCRSP, recognizes the importance of a formalized complaint resolution and grievance process. As noted on this slide, this process is part of efforts to assure equitable treatment for all residents and accountability for all accredited recovery homes in the state. MCRSP encourages resolution at the lowest and most direct levels. For residents, this often means exhausting their recovery house grievance procedure prior to filing with MCRSP. MCRSP has created this requirement to assure that all residents are aware of their right to grieve and the process to submit a grievance. MCRSP's grievance policy and procedure is designed to protect those persons attempting to utilize the process from threats, penalties, retaliation, or negative service impacts. MCRSP's grievance policy and procedure pertains to residents, neighbors, community members, and other stakeholders and recovery housing operators applying for or already accredited. Residents may grieve to MCRSP once they have utilized their local recovery housing process. Neighbors, community members, and other stakeholders with a legitimate issue may also grieve to MCRSP. And finally, housing operators may utilize the process to appeal either to their application for accreditation or any other decision by MCRSP. MCRSP has established an initial process and timeframes for receiving and responding to grievances submitted to the Recovery Housing Accreditation Task Force. Section 6. Recovery Housing Accreditation Process. Before starting this section, you are encouraged to download the MCRSP Recovery Housing Accreditation application. The Recovery Housing Accreditation process is a multi-phase process that is specifically designed to help housing operators get their houses reviewed and accredited as quickly and efficiently as possible. This process has 4 distinct phases: pre-application, application and follow-up, on-site accreditation inspection, and accreditation evaluation. MCRSP is establishing timeframes for each step, and you can request technical assistance from the Recovery Housing Accreditation Task Force at any time during this process. In order to expedite the Recovery Housing Accreditation process for your housing, MCRSP encourages each housing operator to utilize the Recovery Housing Quality Standards Self-Assessment Checklist to understand each of the standards and the documentation requirements for each of the items. This full pre-application checklist will help you assess your readiness to proceed to applying for your accreditation, as your application submission will include a non-refundable fee. Once you have reviewed the standards and have decided to move forward with applying for accreditation of your housing, you'll be required to submit an official application. This application must be submitted with a completed RHS checklist and the required documentation for each item and standard on the checklist. Once you have completed the application and your self-assessment checklist and have gathered your documentation, submit your documents to the MCRSP Recovery Housing Task Force through one of the means listed here. Here is an overview of the next steps in the process once MCRSP receives your application and documents. Here are the next steps in the accreditation process. MCRSP utilizes current and former recovery housing operators throughout the accreditation process, and a team of 2 trained reviewers to assure an effective and efficient on-site accreditation visit. It is anticipated that each on-site accreditation visit should take about 1.5 hours per house. Once the reviewers have completed their on-site visit, they will provide a recommendation to the MCRSP Housing Task Force to approve or deny house accreditation, The MCRSP Housing Task Force will review this recommendation and notify the housing operator of status. MCRSP accreditation costs are among the lowest within the state and across the nation. Note that this accreditation is for 2 years. The fees are subject to change in the future. If you have additional questions, please review frequently asked questions on the MCRSP website. You may also use this website to contact the Missouri Recovery Housing Accreditation Project Lead. We hope that you have found this video helpful. You can download this PowerPoint presentation and all documents referenced in this video at the MCRSP website, mcrsp.org. Thank you.